This is one of the events in the life of Musa alayhi salam. The chronology of it is not known, but it seems it's very much later on after his great missions have been accomplished. The challenge against the Pharaoh is done, the crossing of the water is done, the Israelites are somewhat, they're in the desert now, etc. And it seems it's in that time frame that Allah Azza wa Jal calls him to task. He gives him a mission, essentially that he has to go learn something. This is Allah's way of also teaching us that the knowledge he's about to learn isn't something trivial. Of course, you know that Musa alayhi salam is the most mentioned prophet in the Quran. He's also the recipient of the largest revelation. The Torah is significantly much bigger in volume than the revelation of the Quran. And he's, by that definition, he's actually the most knowledgeable of all human beings until that time. He has more knowledge of revelation than anybody else that has been given. And yet, this man is now being told, alayhi salam, that he is going to go learn. And so he goes on this, what seems like an endless journey. Who is this person that he's going to learn from? You would think this is a very important individual, and there's even an argument whether he's human or angel. It's not an issue in the Quran. The Quran didn't ask that question. We don't have to ask that question. The Quran gave us one bit of information about him. He was one of our slaves. What does that do? That actually teaches us something profound about those who reach the heights of knowledge. They are nothing more than a slave of Allah. He's a mysterious figure that Musa alayhi salam just knows this is the person I have to learn from. And it's really interesting also, Musa alayhi salam does not ask him his credentials and say, so I'm supposed to learn from you? I mean, where did you graduate from? What revelation do you get? Well, who are you supposed to be? Like, you know, when you're learning from someone, you want to kind of size them up. There's nothing like it. Musa alayhi salam straight up goes to him. He says to this individual, this abd bin ibadillah, he says to him, Hal attabi'uka, can I follow you? And of course, his response is, you don't have the patience for it. And Musa alayhi salam then convinces him. And by the way, Musa alayhi salam could have also said, excuse me, I don't have patience. You know who I deal with? I dealt with Fir'aun. You know whose leader I am? Banu Israel. I don't have patience? You know what the kinds of things they've said to me? He doesn't say that. And he says, Satajiduni insha'Allahu sabiran. You'll find me patient. Inshallah, if Allah wills, I'm not saying that I have that capability, but if Allah grants me that capability, I will demonstrate patience to you. These lessons are directly related to difficulty and hardship, where your patience and your grit is going to be put to the test. So this is what Musa alayhi salam is being told. And of course, Musa alayhi salam has seen difficulty before. This is not new for him. So he's pretty confident he'll be able to manage the situation. So they go on their way. And instead of me going ayah by ayah, I'll just share some highlights with you. The first stop on their journey, they board onto a ship. Now when they board onto a ship, obviously there are people, they're travelers, and they ask these people, can we ride with you? So they've done them a favor. Now we have a situation where there are people who did other people a favor. They go on this ride, kharaqaha, he starts going, you can imagine, goes to the bottom of the ship and starts ripping out the planks and damaging the ship. It's now starting to sink from inside. And Musa alayhi salam's like, have you just damaged this boat so you can drown the people that are on it? What are you doing? What an unheard of thing you're doing. How could you do this? And the teacher turns to him and says, didn't I tell you you don't have the patience for this? You can't learn these lessons. And he says, okay. Don't hold me to this. Don't penalize me for this mistake and don't make this hard for me. Fine. You just do what you do. Anyway, this is the first lesson. They go on. He doesn't know what the lesson is yet. He's still got questions in his head. Why did this happen? You don't have the patience. Let's keep going. Time for lesson number 2. And they go on to lesson number 2 and they see this kid. They don't know who this child is. And he just kills the kid. This man kills a child. This child has done nothing to you. He's committed no crime. They don't even know him. Musa alayhi salam is in absolute shock. By the way, this is the kind of person, Musa alayhi salam is the kind of individual that when a person was being beat up, he intervened. You remember earlier on in his life. Somebody was being beat up and he intervened and said, and he went up and he punched the guy. Stopped it from happening. Now he's seen a child be killed. The shock and anger and frustration of Musa alayhi salam. What kind of unheard evil have you just committed? لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُكْرًا. And the teacher turns to him again with this corpse of a child in front of him and says, didn't I say to you, you're not going to have the patience for this. You can't handle this. Okay, he said, fine, if I ask you anything else, then okay, you don't have to accompany me. If I cross the line one more time, I've been disqualified. Now we've got two circumstances so far. One in which people did good to them, and apparently they did bad back. In the other, nobody did anything to you. Why would you do something to them? And this is also something unfathomable for Musa alayhi salam. And then you get to the third circumstance. They went to some town. The people refused to be hospitable to them in the least bit. Nobody's offering them any help, you know. And they're clearly not welcome where they are. You know, what you doing here, stranger? You know, that kind of thing. So when that happens, and they're not welcome, they're walking by and they see this monument type wall that's broken down and it's tipping over. Yuridu an yanqadda. It looks like it's going to tip over and damage the whole street. And his teacher says, yeah, we're going to work on this wall. We're going to fix this whole wall in the middle of town. People are cursing at them. People don't care for them. People are clearly letting them know, you better leave here. You better get out of here. And they're fixing the street in the middle. They're fixing this wall in the middle. And Musa alayhi salam's like, these people are terrible to us. And they won't even give us so much as a sip of water. We've been working and laboring here all day building this wall. If you wanted, you could have been paid for this work at least. Maybe we would have gotten a couple of dollars here and there, and maybe we would have eaten something. But that much, and he says, this is it. This is the time you and I part. هَذَا فِرَاقُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. It's interesting, the story began where two oceans meet, and it's ending where they part. You know, these two are now parting. And in a sense, they're both also oceans of knowledge. Musa alayhi salam is the ocean of knowledge of revelation. And this teacher of his is the knowledge of this other kind of knowledge that doesn't come from books. But now they're parting. And so now he tells him the reasoning behind all three of these. There was a greater plan from Allah. And in this plan, those people whose ship was destroyed, actually their ship was about to be seized by the navy. The king was taking every ship to add to his navy. When they came by their ship, they saw the ship is damaged. They said, no good for the navy. They let it go. They're going to suffer damages. They're going to have to fix it up. But at least they still get to keep their livelihood. They can still earn a living. In the case of the child, only Allah could have known that down the road in the future, this child was going to be a criminal, tyrannical to his parents. And Allah gave that child an outlet to Jannah, and Allah allowed his parents also relief of great calamity that was coming their way. Nobody could have known that except Allah. In the case of this wall, Allah was looking out for two orphans in that town that was so mean to them, whose father left a great deal of money behind, and that money was buried under that wall. If that wall tipped over, people would have seen that treasure. They would have, the kind of people they are, we know what kind of people they are, those kids wouldn't have seen a penny of it. That would have been eaten up by somebody else. And Allah wanted that those kids grow up one day and are strong enough and to protect their assets, and then they dig up what is theirs. This was Allah's plan. But in all of this, none of this makes any logical sense. I mean, unless you know Allah's plan, you're not going to know the logic behind something terrible that happens. What I'm getting at is sometimes you're going to do good for people and you're not going to get compensated like that wall. Sometimes people are going to do terrible things to you. You haven't done anything to them. Sometimes you've done good for them and they only do horrible things to you or somebody else. You see these things around you. And when this happens, your patience is going to be tested. Like in the case of the teacher of Musa who said, look, this is going to test your patience because you don't know what's behind the scenes. All you see is what's happening in front of you. You don't know what's going on, in the background. This is alimul ghaybi wa shahada. Allah knows the unseen and the seen. We only get to see what's in front. And when we see what's in front, we go crazy. We lose patience. We say, how can they do this? How did Allah let this happen? You know those parents who lost their child are not going to say, oh yeah, I guess he was going to get older and be a big pain. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, how did Allah let this happen? Why did my child have to die? And those same parents, if that child lived 20 years later, I wish you died when you were young. The kind of pain you've caused us. Those same parents will say those words. We're not being expected to turn into angels. We're not being expected to not be frustrated, to not be angry, to not lose patience. That's not the expectation from Allah. As a matter of fact, even someone of that status, of Musa alayhi salam, from ulul azmi min ar-rusul, if he can multiple times be told, look, you're losing your patience, told you you're not going to be able to handle it, then who are we? We are going to go through those circumstances. But this story and this guidance is going to remind us that we have to take a step back sometimes and just look at Allah's plan and say, I submit to it. There is something good in it, in this life and in the next, and you know what? I'm going to accept that. And this is the lesson that Musa alayhi salam had to be given.